We're in the office of Mr. Parker, the city manager of Port Orange, and we're doing an interview, and I have a number of questions to ask him. First, I'd like to express to Mr. Parker and to the poem readers my sympathy and my heartfelt feelings for Warren Pike, the problems that have just recently happened, and for his son, for his family, and all the people he has known, and his colleagues, his co-workers, the people on the city council who have known him for many years, and to his boss, Mr. Parker. I'm sure this has been a very trying time for people, and I certainly understand that the human frailty and mistakes do happen, and I do hope that we can all go on and put this all in the past. And I always am reminded, when I had a problem, one sergeant said to me, "Hank, this too shall pass." And it was comforting words. I hope it will be for everybody else involved. But the organizational problems that seem to have developed should be addressed, and we'll try to do some of this. Mr. Parker, thank you for giving me the time and the opportunity. I'd like to ask you, how much of a factor did the recent discovery of missing items in the Public Works Department figure in your decision this week to announce your retirement, which is pending for next year, I believe?
That's correct, Hank. Actually, they didn't play any role in that decision. What it did do is, as I said in the newspaper article, it caused me to really, go back and reflect. But in fact, that wasn't a factor in the decision at all. The two things that were played very important in that decision is, number one, I wanted to be in front of any of the qualifying periods for council, and I've made that very clear, to the council, is that I didn't want any speculation about who or who may not run for council, to be perceived as a reason why I'm leaving. The residents of this community have always elected good individuals to the city council throughout my 28 years, and so I had no reason to think that they wouldn't do the same this time. The second thing is that it's very important from a manager's standpoint to have that budgeting process not bifurcated. And so picking a date whereby the budget would not have been in its intense period from a professional manager standpoint was very important, just because you wanted the new manager to have the latitude of shaping that budget, working with the council in order to get the budget done for the year that would begin in October of 2013.
Can you tell us what went wrong so that we had a discovery and a problem of missing items in the Public Works Department? How and why did this happen?
Well, we're still trying to, get to the bottom of that. We have the internal auditors working right now. Their report is due, I think, sometime next week or maybe the week after. The Public Works Department was scheduled to undergo an internal audit of their procedures next year. We had been focusing upon departments that handle money and things of that sort first, and then we would be moving into the departments that don't handle cash on a regular basis. And so the internal audit is actually looking at what were the internal failures and how they happen and so forth. And until that report is out, we know of a few items. One of them is making sure that security of the facility is handled correctly. There was a security system in place at Public Works. Many years ago, we implemented the Medco keying system, and it's a particular type of keying system And in fact, the Public Works Director, Mr. Pike, brought that system to my attention. And it is that the keys themselves can limit access into areas of the building that an employee needs to be. For example, we have that system here at City Hall. Employees have only, their key will only allow them to go into areas where they're authorized and will not allow them to go into any other area within the building. And that's the same system that we have at Public Works. And so I think that to some extent, we thought that the security of the building was okay, and again, where the storage areas were okay, simply because they were limited and where people could and could not go. What was unknown to me, and from what I understand from most of the employees, is that the key that was in the gate or in the box was a master key. Now that box, according to testimony, was placed there back around 2000 in order to allow fire department vehicles to have access to the complex on weekends or in the evening when they needed to fuel. And my understanding is maybe the public, our police also, that would need to use fueling facilities at that location. And in talking with some of the individuals in command there, they were not aware that the key was a master key either. And so they thought that it would open the gate, and that's what they were dealing with.
The internal audit that is being conducted now, is that just on financial matters?
No, it's not. It's actually looking at inventory. It's looking at how, items are controlled by, controlled out in our department, what our foreman and all of that, how do they control equipment under their control. It's the whole aspect of internal control. It's not just looking at the financial side of it, although financial is being looked at.
So that would include paperwork that has to be filled out, policies are being followed, and stuff like that. Who's conducting this internal audit?
It's a private company that the city has employed for the last 4 or 5 years out of Kissimmee, and the name just doesn't come to my mind right offhand, but they have been working with the city for 3, maybe 4 or 5 years.
In the past, how many times have we had that kind of internal audit?
Out in the operating departments, periodically, finance would go out and test, but not to do the details of probably down to the crew level. They would test systems, but not necessarily all the way down to the point that we're looking at right now.
Do you mean never, or?
Oh, well, I don't know. I don't think never is the right thing, because we, at the warehousing operation, we went in and did some intense changing of procedures down there approximately 8 or 9 years ago to be sure that all of our products were barcoded, and we looked at all the internal procedures down in the utility side of the house to be sure that our warehousing operation was being handled correctly. Public Works is probably not as intense as we had done there, because